Are you the sort of person who watches videos about synthesizers? In which case, you may well have seen one of these. This is the Squarp Hapax.
We don't make mistakes. We have happy accidents.
You might have even asked random strangers on the internet whether or not you need one. You might have given in to gear acquisition syndrome and actually bought one. Controversially, you might have even taken it out of its protective box. And even worse than all of those things, you might have not put a desk saver on top of it. If that sounds like you, I'm hoping that's why you're watching this video. I'm going to share some tips and tricks and general things that I've done with the Hapax. It's not meant to be a comprehensive overview, it's not even meant to be a finished track. Don't worry though, not finishing tracks is totally fine. Just bear that in mind. But hopefully you'll be able to use some of these tips and tricks in your own explorations and things like that. Maybe it'll help with your decision-making process. I don't know. Do whatever you like with it. But yeah, shall we do this? Let's go. So, this is the Squarp Hapax, the brain of a DAWless setup. First tip, plug everything in. Got a bunch of MIDI cables coming out, some CV gate, and USB device for the black box over here. Tip number 2, name your channels. It makes things a lot easier to navigate. Hit Shift or Second and the track number, click to rename, hold to delete, type something else in, and then save. So you always know where you are within your project. Great. Once you've done that for all your channels, here's the next tip. Save the empty project with the word default. Then when you go to create a new project, it prompts you if you want to use the default project, say yes, and then all your tracks are automatically labelled and set up. So in my case, I've got 2 channels for the Iridium, the Moog, Syntrix, Cascadia, drums, some other stuff on the black box, and so on. Getting into it, let's start with the Cascadia, which is on channel 5. And if you long press the project button, you get a bunch of different options up here, which allows you to set things like the key. So I'm going to go with D minor because it's the saddest key. Beautiful. So I'll play some notes in step mode, and then the next tip is to select them. Hold down the top left, bottom right, and if I keep that held down I can use the arrow keys to move them left, right, up and down and play Tetris, which is useful. On top of that I can also press the plus button to warp the notes. So you can see this is not only moving them right, but it's also stretching them out, which is great if you want to double or half notes in a group. And it also means I've now got a full bar of notes. So the Cascadia's got some sample and hold, which is linked to the Hapax's tempo, so I'll slow that down a bit. Now for MIDI effects. And the first one I'm going to use is called output. What this does is send MIDI from a track to any other destination output on the Hapax. In my case, A3 is the Moog, so I'll assign that and play back. Awesome. Let's quickly transpose it by selecting all and turning the octave knob. Cool. Now because output is the first plugin in my chain, I can still add effects afterwards and they'll only affect the target track. So let's add a harmonizer to play the root note plus a 7th. Now we'll add an arpeggiator. There's loads of different styles on this. So I don't really like the idea of the Cascadia playing on a downbeat at the same time as the Moog, so I'm going to add in a Euclidean sequencer. 12 steps in 16 beats, and then we'll rotate it so it misses that first downbeat. So whilst we're in the effects menu, we can also have a look at the matrix, which allows you to map controls to any effect you've added. So let's choose the project LFO as a source. And what's interesting is the destination can be any of the parameters of any of the effects. So let's map the LFO to the Euclidean sequencer's gate time. You can see the LFOs whizzing backwards and forwards. Let's make this a bit less extreme. And then if I go to the Euclidean plugin page, you can see the gate time is also changing. You can get to the project-wide LFO settings by pressing Shift and the Effects button. Add a bit of delay. And it sounds awesome already. So next up, let's add some basic drums. That's on the black box. Really simple. The one thing you might have noticed is these note parameters here. Let's change one to add a roll. And we can also do some electron style trigger conditions too. So as well as the idea of doing math functions on individual notes, you can also do math functions on patterns. So for example, here's my first Cascadia pattern. I'm going to copy that, paste it to the next one. Let's change a note. But I don't want this to happen all the time, so in the same way that I added a math condition to the notes, I'm going to hold the pattern down and change the follow value to next. Push the button in and let's set a percentage, say 50%. Then on the next pattern down, I'm going to say always follow with the previous pattern, 100% of the time. So now, half the time this pattern's going to stay where it is, and the other half of the time it's going to move on. And every time it moves on, it's going to come back to where it started. Cool. So what else should we do? Let's put the iridium into the mix. I'm going to mute the other two parts first. The mute overview is much better now, by the way. And then we're going to add an infinitely long chord. Amazing. Now for another effect. This is the Polyrhythmic arpeggiator. So what does this do? Well, you can program in notes and ties and steps and things like that. And you can see all three lanes here are playing the same thing, but if I put in a few random and step clauses, patterns start deviating from each other. You can also push the button in and you can actually change the length of each lane. Using this with a drum machine is kind of insane as well. Bit of a mess, but let's add some delay and unmute the other parts. Now, one thing that did get added in Firmware 2.1 was the idea of an SH101 style sequencer. So we'll do this on track 11, which is CV output. Press live and step together and you get a new display up top. Play in a series of notes, ties and rests, and hit apply. And we can keep adding effects to this too. Let's put in a randomizer. So this is now going to randomly add octaves above and below. This sounds awesome. So the last but one thing I'll show you is something else that got introduced in 2.1. Let's mute the other tracks first. And select the Syntrix track. This is absolute filth. We're going to put in the Register plugin. This is inspired by a bunch of Eurorack modules that basically play random notes. Because random notes are awesome, right? We'll fix the random notes though by running it through another plugin called the Scale Quantizer, which basically pulls notes to their closest neighbour in the project scale. Fantastic. Now let's unmute some things. And the final tip, once you've got a loop you like, hold down the proj button and then change the setting that says track 16 transpose. You'll notice that track 16 now starts flashing. Then go back to live mode and select track 16. Whenever I play a note, it's going to transpose my loop. And because this is a track in its own right, you can also program note changes into it. So let's make a 4-bar loop. Just made that by pressing Shift and then plus twice. And then we'll add in some notes. Perfect. So, hopefully that was useful. If not, whatever. If there's something you've discovered whilst using the Hapax or you've seen someone else do, then please do make a comment below because it broadens the wider community and all that kind of thing. Comment, like, subscribe because, you know, we all like to do that kind of stuff. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. It really does mean an awful lot. And yeah, until next time.